The film which you are about to see is an account of the tragedy which befell a group of 5 youths, in particular, Sally Hardesty and her invalid brother, Franklin. It is all the more tragic in that they were young. But had they lived very, very long lives, they could not have expected, nor would they have wished to see as much of the mad and macabre as they were to see that day. For them, an idyllic summer afternoon drive became a nightmare. The events of that day were to lead to the discovery of one of the most bizarre crimes in the annals of American history, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Hey guys, tonight we're going to get into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So everybody just sit back and get ready. This is going to be a good one.
Remember, we keep it tight, and it's a podcast world. We're ready to ignite. That's the lesson. We got it all. Tune in, turn up, come vibe with us, y'all. So remember.
Tonight we're going to talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, in 1974, it was an American independent horror film. It was produced and composed and directed by Tobe Hooper, who co-wrote it with Kim Hinkle. Is that right?
Yep.
The film stars Marilyn Burns, Paul A. Partain, Edwin Neal, Jim Sidow, and Gunnar Hansen. It follows a group of friends who fall victim to a family of cannibals while on their way to visit an old homestead. It was marketed as being based on a true events and to attract a wider audience, to act as a subtle commentary on the era's political climate. Although the character of Leatherface and minor story details were inspired by the crimes of murderer Ed Gein, the plot of the movie, it's basically fake. It's only, based on minor stuff. Daniel, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I was actually going to mention Ed Gein the last time whenever we were talking last week. But yes, it's loosely based on Ed Gein. But one more fun fact about that was you said it was directed by Tobe Hooper. And Tobe Hooper, in an interview, said that he was standing in line in I guess maybe it was a kind of a mall or something, but he was standing in line for Christmas, and the line was so long that it backed him all the way up into the hardware section, and he was standing right next to these chainsaws. And he said that he just in his own mind, he thought that it would be funny if he went over there and started up one of them chainsaws and then had everybody just take off running, and then he could get to the front of the line quicker. And that didn't necessarily give him the idea for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it kind of helped kind of get him there. But at the beginning of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's a little narration that's done by a guy named John Larroquette. And John Larroquette, if anybody don't know, was an actor in the 1980s. But the thing about that is that he was always an actor in like comedies and stuff. There was a comedy sitcom back in the 80s that ran that was called Night Court. And John Larroquette was one of the lawyers on Night Court. And it was so different. I always thought that it was so weird that he did the opening, that little intro for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I always thought that it was so weird that he was the one that did that when I found out about it, because he went on to do all these comedies and didn't have anything to do with horror. And turns out that in an interview with Tobe Hooper, he said that basically he was roommates with him, or he was friends with him back then, and basically he paid him in weed. He asked him if he would do the opening commentary, and dude was like, sure. And he goes, I don't have any money to give you because it was so low budget. It was shoestring budget. But he was like, I paid him in weed, and dude did it. And I always thought that was so weird, because John Larroquette back in the 1974, whenever Texas Chainsaw Massacre got made, he wasn't big name yet, But right. It was so weird that he went on to do a bunch of comedies. And with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre being like a granddaddy horror movie for him to go to do them comedies, I thought that was pretty neat, pretty cool.
Yeah, that is crazy. Brent, you've stated that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is your number one favorite movie of all time, and we talked about this a lot last week in the show, and that's what gave us the idea to have this show this week. But you was telling some stuff to us about this movie that just blew my mind about how it's all, what's the word I'm looking
deep.
for?
It's deep.
Yeah, it's deep, but it's got a lot, more meaning than just a guy with a chainsaw chasing people around, which is what most people think about it.
It's got a lot of parallels.
Yeah, parallels. Yeah.
Well, if anyone remembers from last week, this was my favorite movie, and like Corky said, it's just a deep. Well, I don't know if deep is the word for it, but it does have a lot of parallels, and it has a lot of symbols. And so, like Dad alluded to, I mean, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was a very low budget film. I don't know if this was Tobe Hooper's first movie, but it had to be one of his first. And when he was directing the movie, he thought this was going to be something that they played at a drive-in. And so that's why every time I watch it, I like to imagine you're in the 70s, you're at the drive-in, you've got the sun setting, so it's that red hour where the sun is right on the horizon, it's red, and then watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So
some of those dust bunnies flying across in front of you,
Exactly. So the
sky just looks different down in Texas. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. And me and Dad did see the original house, so we can get into that later. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is really about the meat industry with animals and animal cruelty. And the first time you watch it, you'll think, kind of like what Corky said, that it's just a guy chasing people around with a chainsaw. But when you actually start studying it, you see the parallels. So the first time that the teenagers or the kids or whoever come in contact with one of the family, it's one of the brothers, and he comes up and he
Nubbins. His name is Nubbins in the movie.
Nubbins.
He was the hitchhiker.
Let me say something about Nubbins before we get into this too deep. I remember watching that movie, and he's sitting there in that van talking to the guy that's in the wheelchair, right?
Yeah.
And he just freaks out and pulls out his razor blade and cuts dude on the hand. And I'm like, why did you do that, man? For no reason. You just gonna cut somebody?
He took that picture of him and wanted him to give him $5 for it.
Yeah, he didn't pay him.
And he didn't pay him.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about he had that old camera. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes into it. He was mad that he didn't make money. That's kind of how he was making money now, it seems, was taking pictures of people and making them pay. But so why did he not make any money? Well, that's because he got fired from his slaughterhouse job. And they got fired because they automated it. And and this kind of gets into what Corky was saying about it being politics at the time. Remember, this was made in 1974. So a lot of manual labor is going to automation. So people are losing their jobs. So what does he say? He says he likes it better the old way, when we could kill the cows with a sledgehammer, like just whack them over the head. And he says, whenever one of the girls, she like screams, she's just like, "Oh, that's gross. Why would you do that?" And he's like, "Hey, don't worry about it. They can't feel a thing." He's like, when they're shaking on the ground, they can't feel a thing. And so then he takes the picture of Franklin. Franklin doesn't pay. And then he freaks out, cuts his hand, and he drives off, and he makes the mark on the RV or on the van. And so when the group of kids make it to the gas station where the big brother is working, we're assuming that the big brother sees the blood print on the van, and that's how he knows that the family has come in contact with them. But to go in more with the symbolism, so I said that when he hits him over the head, hit a cow over the head, Nubbin says that, the cows can't feel a thing. So the first time that you see Leatherface, you walk into the house, and this has to be one of the scariest scenes in horror. It's one of the few scenes that really scares me. Even watching it now, it scares me. He's walking in, he's like, hello, hello. He goes down the long kind of hallway towards the red wall, and he stumbles, Leatherface standing right there, hits him in the head with the mallet, and he falls to the ground convulsing. And so when you see the parallels there, it's he's kind of trying to prove a point that, oh, like, you don't think cows can feel it, but do you think that this man can feel it now that he just got hit in the head with a hammer and he's convulsing? And
Yeah. I can remember, Brent, when I watched this movie as a young kid, probably shouldn't have been watching it, but that scene is one of the main things that stands out in my mind when I think about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I can remember hearing that thump of that hammer hit that guy on the head, and I even thought as a kid, I was like, man, that's brutal. That's different. You don't see people get taken out by getting hit over the top with a head with a hammer. That's just something you don't see every day. And I remember watching that scene thinking how brutal that this movie was, just because they showed something like that.
And the first time that I ever saw it, it got to that scene, and at the time I was way too young to be watching it. I was less than 10 years old the first time I ever saw it.
Same.
But I'm sitting there and I'm watching. I can't remember, Kirk, I think is what the guy's name is. Kirk knocks on the door, and then he's hearing this squealing and stuff, and that's, Leatherface, I guess, drawing him in or whatever. And Kirk goes up there, and then he ends up getting killed, right? So then he drags Kirk into that little room, and he slams the big door, okay? And then you kind of hear that boom kind of noise. Okay, so then it goes back to where the girl is swinging on the swing outside in the yard. That whole first scene where Kirk got killed, it was scary, but that's not what really got to me. What really got to me was, I know what happened to Kirk now, and now this chick is going to walk right up into that house, and I know what's coming now. And that was always the scariest part for me. The other part is that it was during the daylight.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, I'll say that too. This movie took place during the day, and that's just something you don't see a lot of.
Right. And I had seen horror movies before, but I had never seen a horror movie to where somebody got took out in the middle of the day like that by a slasher.
Yeah.
She was trying to run out. She almost made it. She made it back to the front porch. I mean, broad daylight. It's like 3:00 in the afternoon or something. People on day shift's not even off work yet. And Leatherface grabs her and drags her back into the house. And that was probably at that age, I'm gonna say that was probably the scariest scene of any movie that I had ever seen. And as an adult, okay, I start, like, if you could hook a blood pressure cuff up to me while I'm watching that movie, right around the time when Kirk and that girl start knocking on the front door, my blood pressure is going to start to go up. And because I know what's coming.
Because you know what's coming, yeah.
That whole first scene was probably the scariest thing that I had ever watched. And even as an adult, I'm sitting there watching that and I'm going, okay.
Yeah. The fact that she almost escapes too, and the way that he grabs her and she's kicking, so you can see how big he is compared to her, and she's like kicking her legs. I mean, that has to be one of the most iconic scenes in a horror movie.
Now, is this the chick that he drags back there, picks her up and hangs her on the hook?
Yeah.
And what stood out to me about that scene is he picks her up, hangs her on the hook, just, alive, and she doesn't die. She stands there and just suffers for a while she has to watch him, cut this other guy up that's laying there on the table. But
And
could
that's
you
the first time
imagine?
to see the chainsaw.
Yeah, yeah, it is. But could you imagine somebody picking you up and hanging you on a big hook, through your spine, and you can't do anything but just hang there while you watch, because you're next. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's scary.
And at that point, you're dead. You're dead.
Oh,
That
you're
you're
done.
not. That you're not. You're still alive, but that they ain't no way out of it at this point. There's no way that you're going to get out of it.
Yeah, and then just to tie back in with the symbolism really quick, that last scene, the dinner scene, that's when you see Grandpa. So he's the patriarch of the family. He's the guy that everyone says he taught everyone how to kill. So he's the killer, and he's trying to hit the girl over the head with the hammer himself, and it doesn't work. But that just draws more into the fact that this movie is playing on the politics of animal cruelty and also of automation, like in factories and stuff, taking jobs. And whenever you find that out, it just makes the movie a lot deeper. And then once you add to it, well, that's all I have for the symbolism part of that. And then if anyone else wants to add to that.
Yeah, but I went back and rewatched it after you talked about that in last week's podcast, and going back and rewatching it, I could see all the just brutality of this movie and just how much different it was, and I can see how they would be talking about this is what animals go through, getting picked up and hung on a hook, and just no regard for the pain or suffering they're going through. They're just run through a slaughterhouse. That's basically what it is, and that's really the feeling you get when you watch this movie, is these people are just being put through a slaughterhouse.
Yeah, and so that was kind of the effect that the director wanted you to feel, was that you are witnessing this is how it feels to be in a slaughterhouse. And that's why I love the music to this. There's not much of a music, but it's supposed to sound like you're inside of a slaughterhouse. And once you hear that, go back and watch the movie. And Corky, you probably picked this up on this last watch through. But you can hear the music that's supposed to sound like a slaughterhouse. It's just industrial sounding,
Right.
like metal on metal. It's supposed to be like the last sounds that an animal hears before they go to be slaughtered. It's really disturbing. Like, it just adds to this disturbing.
And when you put it like that, that's just, I'm sorry, I'm not no vegetarian or no vegan or nothing like that, but I feel sorry for the animals, man, because even though they say, animals have to be put down in a humane way, it's still bad. You know what I'm talking about? When you look at it through the eyes of something like this, that's terrible. Animals are being treated terrible just to feed us. I guess that's the purpose they're here for, but it's just a terrible situation.
Yeah.
And that's what and if I'm not mistaken, it goes the same way. They would kill these people and then they would eat them, just like we would be eating the meat that they would be getting out of the slaughterhouse.
And that was the other thing that I was getting at, is they wouldn't kill them just to kill them. They were killing them and then they were eating them.
Yeah.
Just like what we do with cows and different animals. They were killing them and eating them.
Yeah.
Now,
and another thing
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to bring up another reason I love the movie so much is Leatherface is one of the few slasher movie villains that you kind of feel pity for a little bit, because his whole thing is he has like mental issues. You can tell from the movie he has mental issues, and the family bullies him. The big brother bullies him. The little brother bullies him.
The big brother is named Drayton. Drayton saw. Well, it depends on what sequel that you're watching.
He has a different name in each sequel.
Drayton is the name of the cook or the guy that owns the gas station, and the actual name it wasn't given in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I can't remember what sequel it was that they give them the Sawyer name. But in some sequels, it's Drayton Sawyer. And in other sequels, it's Hewitt, and there's not a Drayton in the Hewitt side, but
I guess we can just call him the cook and the hitchhiker and Leather.
Yeah, it's the cook, the hitchhiker, and Leatherface, and the names were Nubbins and Drayton, and then Leatherface never really had in the remake, or not the remake, but in the Texas Chainsaw 2013, his name was they actually give him a name like Jedediah or something, Jedediah, and they called him Jed. But anyway.
But yeah, they bully him. So the brothers, they bully him, and you can tell, like, remember the cook, he makes it back home, and he's like, "Oh, you tore up the door, you," and he grabs a broom and starts beating Leatherface, and he's holding his head. But Corky, I want to ask you this. Talking about that, did you notice? So he has, I believe it's 3 mask changes throughout the movie, and they all signify different phases. Did you notice that when you watched the movie?
No, I noticed too. I know the mask he wears at the first, where he does the, dragging the girl through the door, and the one at the end, the mask that's kind of got the makeup on. But is there another one? I didn't realize there was another one.
Yeah, I was thinking. I think there's 3. I think one is an old lady's face.
Oh, really? I need to look that up.
But I was going to say, so they call the first mask, the most famous mask, that's usually called the killer mask. So
yeah,
that's when he's like in his killing mood. That's when he's slaughtering. Then you got the old lady mask, where he's taken on that more of a feminine role. And you see when he's wearing the old lady's mask, that's when he's serving the family. So he's serving them. He's walking around with the apron and giving the family their food.
Okay.
And then that last scene, they call it the pretty girl mask, or pretty woman mask. And that's I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that mask is from someone earlier in the movie. I can't remember. I know there's a face that you see that's the face of someone else earlier in the movie.
Right.
I can't say about the original, but I do know that in some of the sequels, that holds true. Like, he'll kill somebody at the first part of the movie, or kind of in the middle of the movie, and then later on you'll see him actually wearing their face. That's actually happened in some of the sequels. But go ahead, Corky.
Oh, I was just saying, I think that last mask that he had on when he's got the suit on and he's out in the middle of the road, and the girl jumps in the back of the truck and runs off, and that that mysterious truck driver just runs away there at the end of the movie. But I think that mask is, in my opinion, that's the best mask, because it's got that real dark, cheek blush on and the eyeshadow. That's just a creepy mask, man. You go throwing somebody in a suit chasing you with a chainsaw with that. Man, that's creepy on another level,
But to change gears here for just a second, and there's a lot of parallels that we've been talking about, but also there is a fair amount of comedy. For that to be such a brutal horror movie, there's a pretty good amount of comedy that's in that movie if you can see it.
I can tell you one scene that just made me crack up, and this is probably just because of my humor. But when the guy in the wheelchair falls out and rolls down the hill, I'm like, why did that happen?
When the truck drives by and it blows that guy down the hill, that's all he's trying to do is use the bathroom. I know. Pull off on the side of the interstate, and he's trying to use the bathroom, and this big truck blows by and it like blows him down the hill. That's one, okay? And you're thinking, why is that even in this horror movie, right?
How did that even happen? How fast was that truck going?
Well, the second thing is whenever Drayton, the Leatherface, runs the girl up into the gas station. It was during that last chase scene, right before she gets captured. So he kills the dude in the wheelchair, and he's running her all over the property. She runs into the house, and he chases her all the way to the gas station. Okay. And she goes to the gas station and she's talking to Drayton, and she's like, please help me, and all this stuff. And he was like, okay, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. There ain't nobody out there. And so he gets her into the truck. He gets her into the truck, and I think at that point he's already got her tied up and everything. He gets her into the truck and he's about to drive off, but he looks and he realizes that he's left his light on in the gas station. So he gets out of the truck and goes and turns off the light and gets back in the truck, just like anybody else would be like, "Oh, I left the light on." So that it was a scene like that. It shows kind of the humor. It's not just all a slasher. And
Yeah, and when Franklin is left downstairs in the house and he starts blowing the air parts.
You got that, and he's blowing the raspberries and all that. But then, you got Drayton and he's just like tapping her with the broom and he's laughing.
Yeah.
And she's like running into the house and he's just like, it's stuff like that it's like you're sitting there and you're going, man, this is one of the scariest, disturbing movies that I've ever seen. Yeah. But there's stuff in it that if you see it, I mean, it'll just make you bust out laughing. It's really comical.
I know, dude, going down that hill, that truck drove by, man. I laughed about that. But I had one thing I wanted to ask you guys about, and Brent, you may know about it, Dan, you might know about it, but didn't one of you guys tell me that the last scene where I guess they're all in the dining room and they're trying to kill the last girl there, didn't you tell me they filmed that thing over an entire day and they wouldn't let nobody take a bath or something like that?
Yeah.
That was Brent talking about that, but that's in the documentary, in the DVD that I've got, but I'll let Brent talk about it.
Well, throughout the whole shooting, he didn't let anyone wash their clothes because he wanted it to be an authentic experience and he didn't want people to lose their clothes and stuff like that. So there was no washing clothes. In that last scene, they filmed it over 24 hours. And this is in the middle of the summer in Texas. And the house didn't have air conditioning. So they're in the kitchen for 24 hours in dirty clothes. They haven't taken a shower. And you're just having to do the most disturbing. I mean, that's a disturbing scene to watch. And imagine being in the scene. I mean, that's disturbing. And something crazy is the cut that we see of the film, of the movie. The hitchhiker, I think it's the hitchhiker, when he's trying to get Grandpa to eat her blood, he cuts her hand and it actually cuts her, like, and it is real blood, and Grandpa actually licks her real blood and like the human blood, and so that just adds to kind of the creep factor of the movie. And the actress said that when she left and they're filming when she's driving away in the truck, that when she's screaming and laughing, that a lot of that was real. Like she was actually really happy to be gone from the house and to be done with the filming. And from what I've heard, the actors and actresses of the movie still do not like Tobe Hooper because of the way that he made them film the movie. They said they still don't really like him that much.
Yeah, well, I can tell you another reason they probably don't like him. From what I'm reading, since it was because it's such a low budget film, none of the actors, they got paid whatever they got paid, but they didn't get any of the residuals off any of the success it had.
Oh, they didn't get any kind of royalties or anything?
No, from what I'm reading, they didn't get anything. So they got what their base pay was, and after that, all this money that's come in throughout these years, they didn't get no part of it.
Oh man! So
Leatherface
Go ahead.
Leatherface was a student at the University of Texas. He wasn't even an actor.
That's what I was going to say. Is Gunnar Hansen is the guy that played Leatherface in 1974, and at the time, I think he was he was a student at the University of Texas. The movie was filmed in Round Rock, which is basically a suburb of Austin. And I have family members that live in Round Rock, Texas, and they have actually shown me where the actual movie was filmed, where the house used to be. Now the house isn't there anymore. The house ended up getting moved to Kingston. Yeah, or is it Kingston or is it Kingsport? It's King something.
I can't remember the name of it. It's a small little town,
Yeah,
like on
yeah,
a lake.
it's like Kingsport or Kingston or something. And it's about 150 miles away. And me and Brent actually went there. It's a diner. It's a restaurant. And so me and Brent actually went into the house and had lunch. I had a burger.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that was.
what I think they should do is I think you should be able to pay to have somebody chase you down the road with a chainsaw. I mean, who can say that, hey, I got run out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house by a guy with a chainsaw? That would be awesome.
Well, Dad, when we got in, they put like pickles on his hamburger or something. He was like, "Oh, I can't tell them that I can't tell them remake it because Leatherface."
I tell you seriously, I ain't gonna lie.
Second dose.
Yeah, that was
I'm not even gonna lie though.
Second dose after Leatherface got him. There's no more second dose.
Brent was in college at the time, and that's why he was down there. He was living in Dallas, and he was there for the summer. And I flew down there for like a long weekend or something to go see him. And that was one of our day trips, is to go to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house. And we went there, and I ain't even gonna lie. We show up in the parking lot of this place, and I'm just looking at the house, and my hands started sweating.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, dude, it's for real now, because this is the real house.
Like it looks the exact same.
I mean, it's nice. It's they painted it, and it's a restaurant now, so they got little signs up and stuff. But it's still the house, and so I'm sitting there like, oh man, we're about to go up in here, and we actually went through the front door. And we wasn't supposed to. There was a sign that said, don't use this door. But me and Brent went through the front door, and the staircase was right there on the right, and you could see where the door was, where Leatherface stepped out. And I was like, oh man, this is neat right here. I'm loving it. So we got pictures. And we ate in the dining room where they were filming the dining scene right there at the end, where they had her bent over the bucket and they were hitting her in the head with the hammer. We sat in that room, in that very room, and had lunch that day. It was awesome.
Now that is awesome. I remember you guys posting pictures about that. And I'll tell you another, quick fact about the movie. There's, as gruesome as this movie was, there's very little blood in it. And I believe it's because, the director was actually hoping for a PG rating or something like that, because at the time there was no PG-13 rating. So he was trying to, make sure he could get it into as many theaters, I guess, as he could, because that's why, there's not a lot of blood in it. I think he joked and said there's maybe 2 ounces of blood in the whole movie.
Yeah, that was something else. There's some blood drops and stuff whenever they're hitting the girl in the head with the hammer. And they've got the blood on the guy's forearm whenever he cuts it. But like whenever Leatherface kills everybody, whenever he hit the guy in the head with the hammer, no blood. Whenever he picked the girl up and put her on the hook, and he set the blood bucket under her, no blood. Like in your mind, you're going, oh man, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that's one of the bloodiest movies I've ever seen. No, it wasn't.
Yeah. You'd think anybody getting chopped up with a chainsaw, there would be some blood, I didn't realize that until, Brent said something about it last week. And sure enough, I went back and watched the movies, and there's blood in it, but it's nothing like, I figured there'd be blood sprayed all over the walls and all that good stuff. But there really wasn't.
Well, if you watch it, there's really no reason for it to be rated R. I mean, if you actually think about it, it really could be a rated PG movie because there's no
By
cussing,
today's
there's-
standards, at
Yeah,
least.
that's what I was going to say. According to today's standards, that movie technically, with as scary as what it is, and that's why it messes with your head. You know, that's what makes it scary is your mind is filling in all the gaps for you. But if you're looking, it doesn't have any kind of nudity in it. It doesn't have any kind of bad language in it, and it doesn't have a bunch of gore in it. So by today's standards, technically, that's a PG movie.
They'd be showing that in 8th grade substitute days nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
Well, hey, I'll tell you guys this before we're done. I'm going to spring this on you here right at the end of the show. But you know, we've just talked about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I'd like for all of us just to rate it from, you know, on a scale of 0 to 5. You know, of how good you thought the movie was. And now that I know all this different stuff about it, you know, I'm going to give Texas Chainsaw Massacre 5 out of 5. Daniel, what do you give it?
5 out of 5. I've always given it a 5 out of 5.
All right, Brent, what you giving it?
I've got to give it a 5 out of 5. It's my favorite movie. 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5. Well,
so
go ahead, buddy.
Before we get off here, because I know that we're winding down, this is towards the end of the show, but before we get off here, I just want to, you just watched it, Corky, and Brent, you know it like
right
the back
now.
of my hand, just like I know it like the back of my hand. So I want you in your head to try to count up the number of times where everybody could have lived. Like you get so far into the movie and there's still spots where you're going, man, everybody could have lived. Okay.
Well, golly bum. I think everybody could have survived if they wasn't stupid.
Well, so,
you know.
So what I was going to say is you've already encountered the hitchhiker. That's red flag number one.
Don't pick up hitchhikers, kids. That's the first thing you do.
Number one.
Yeah.
Then you go up to the gas station and you meet Drayton Sawyer. And Drayton Sawyer is specifically telling you, don't go to the house. Like, you don't want to go there. There's some people, and he tells them this in the movie. He says, there's some people that don't like you messing around and they don't mind to show you.
Yeah,
and
don't be stupid.
Warning. That's a warning. So that's 2 that everybody could have survived. And then they went to, it was the handicap guy, the guy in the wheelchair, and the main girl. It was their brother and sister in the movie. It was their papaw that owned the house that they went to begin with. All of them were there. So that's like 3 opportunities that everybody had that they could have all escaped, and they could, you know, come away with this story that said, hey, I talked to 2 out of the 3 brothers, you know, in the Sawyer family that could have killed me.
Yeah.
And it's 3 opportunities that all 3 of that everybody could have lived. And then even after the girl and the guy went on, there was still 3 of them left, and the guy had the van keys.
Yeah.
The dude that owned the van, that was driving the van, was actually only the 3rd person that got killed. So 2 of them could have got killed, and the other 3 could have still escaped.
Yep. But now the van was out of gas, right?
It was running low on gas, but they could have at least drove down the road and give it an effort to get away.
Well, let's be honest. What they could have not done is snuck into some old creepy house thinking there was going to be some gas in there. Let's just be real about it one time. You know,
they were looking for gas in the creepy house. If you remember,
I thought that's what they were doing, was looking for some gas.
Drayton Sawyer at the gas station, he told them, he said, you know, the gas truck won't be here till tomorrow, but it could be here this afternoon. Right. And they were like, okay, well, looks like we're going to have to go back to that town or whatever. But the dude in the wheelchair was like, no, we got to go to my papaw's house. And that's the whole purpose of going over here, was to go to the papaw house. So Drayton already told them there ain't no gas until tomorrow anyway, at the earliest.
Right.
Okay. And he was like, and don't go poking around no houses because you just get trouble on yourself. Okay. So then they show up at the papaw's house, which their papaw, I guess, owned that house or whatever. He was the one that was dead at the beginning of the movie that they went to go see if his grave had been desecrated.
Mhm.
So at that point, they were still all 5 of them there. They got to their papa's house. So they achieved their goal for what they wanted. All they had to do was freaking leave. That's all they had to do was leave.
Just leave, man. Don't get chopped up by a chainsaw. Come on.
That's right, man. Come on, man. You got to do
No one
some-
escapes leather. No one escapes leather.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I'll tell
and
you what.
the other part that you were talking about, dude took off running. The dude that saved her. So he ran over Nubbin
Yeah.
in the truck. Okay.
Yeah.
And then she gets into the cab of the truck and they go across to the other side and get out and take off running. Here comes Leatherface around the truck. Okay. He throws the wrench, hits Leatherface in the head. Chainsaw falls on Leatherface's leg.
Yeah.
Chick jumps into the back of a pickup truck that's going the opposite way. Okay. Dude that was driving the semi truck, he just takes off booking it, right? And you never see him again.
Yeah.
You never see him again in the original movie. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, dude makes it, right?
Yeah.
So in the 2013 Texas Chainsaw, which was supposed to be a direct sequel of the original, they go back and it's the flashback of what happens like 15 minutes after girl gets away.
Right.
And the sheriff shows up at the house and he's got the bullhorn and he's yelling for them to bring Leatherface out and he's going to arrest Leatherface and all that. In that scene, the truck driver is actually hanging on the meat hook.
So they got him.
Got him and they killed him.
Well, you know what? I knew he was going down. I just was hoping for the best, you know.
I still say that he made it because in the original he made it. So I'm
Well, you know what's funny is just the fact that they showed him hanging on the hook means that enough people has said, what happened to that guy? You know?
right.
And they wanted to at least answer the question for everybody.
I've seen a bunch of I guess where the actors go to them cons and
Yeah.
whatnot. And the dude that is the truck driver, he's been in a bunch of cons, and I've seen him all over Facebook and stuff. And that dude looks like one of the coolest dudes, man. It's like I just want to sit next to that guy and drink some sweet tea and be like, hey man, what was your experience like in your 30 seconds of being in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Why don't you tell me about that?
You know what? He was one of the smartest ones there because he knew enough to just run and get out of there and quit messing around.
Out. He was like, forget this, I'm done.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, man, good show, man. And I think we covered it well. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, one of the best movies ever made. Highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. And we'll see everybody next week. Bye.
Remember, we keep it tight, and it's a podcast world. We're ready to ignite. That's the lesson. You got it all. Tune in, turn up, come by with us, y'all. So remember.